Welcome to a special edition of Tech Talk with Troy. We'll get started in just a moment. Prepare yourselves for insightful discussion that will empower your business to deliver top-tier solutions to your clients.
We're going to go over the Vista H3 installation and programming. If you look at all these modules that we are releasing this panel with, we have an 8-zone expander module, we've got a relay module, we've got ECP takeover modules. We have everything on the screen that we're releasing right now, except the keypad at the lower right corner, the landscape keypad. That's coming towards the end of January. We're going to cover each of these modules in detail. Vista 20 series is really our largest used, most used panel in the industry, literally in the industry. So that's what I want to compare this to. So right off the bat, 8 zones on board right out of the box. And of course, that's the same as a Vista 20. Wireless zone capacity right out of the box. We've got a 56 zone capacity with no needed receiver to add. So the receiver's built in. So it says that we have 16 more, but in reality, right out of the box, without adding any extra equipment, we have 56 more. Total zone capacity, it's a 64 zone panel. 8 of those zones are on board, and you can use expansion to get the total of 64 zones. The Vista 20 was marketed as a 48 zone panel with 16 key fob zones, which really it gave you 64 zones, but as it was marketed, we're 16 zones higher than that. 2-wire smoke detectors. This is a big one in my book because, one of the reasons that, a lot of people weren't moving to the Pro Series was they believed in hardwired smokes. And if you're the believer in hardwired smokes or hardwired zones, take a sigh of relief because we now have a panel that's up to date with a Pro Series platform that gives you hardwired zones, and more importantly, those hardwired smoke detectors. A lot of people, there's nothing really more dependable than hardwired because really not getting interference unless you're cutting or shorting something when you're talking about hardwired. So 2-wire smokes, it's the same as a Vista 20P, or is it? If we look down at the bottom, we've got VPlex support. VPlex support, we have 2-wire zone or 2-wire smoke zone expanders. So essentially, you could have up to 64 2-wire smoke zones if you were using multiple 4209U 2-wire smoke zone expanders. So there's a lot built into this package. You can see maybe why, I'm excited about it. And yeah, this is me excited, but I don't get real excited. But anyway, key fob support. Vista 20P supported 4 key fobs using all 4 buttons. The Vista H3 supports 32 key fobs using the 4 buttons that you can see, and the zone pairs, the button pairs, which is essentially an 8-button key fob. We support up to 32 of those, which is 28 more key fobs, really. Output relays and triggers. Yes, we have 2 onboard triggers. We have 62 relays that you can add to the system, giving you a 46 relay advantage from the Vista 20P. I can only think of a couple scenarios where I've seen that many relays used, but it is possible on this panel to do that. Keypad support, we have hardwired keypads, Wi-Fi keypads, and Pro 6 wireless keypads. Vista 20P, you could put 8 keypads on it. Partitions and a common lobby. The Vista 20P had 2 partitions plus a common lobby. Vista H3, we've got 4 partitions, and one of those can be a common lobby. So if you're always using common lobby, it has 1 more partition. If you're never using common lobby, it has 2 more partitions. User codes, 48 user codes. We have 100 with the Vista H3, 52 more user codes. Auxiliary power, the number one question, the number one request that we have had in my 27-year history has been, we need more auxiliary power. The panels need more aux power. So we've given you aux power. We have 58% more aux power on this panel at 950 milliamps. So that's 350 milliamps more, but when you put it in context, that's literally 58% more aux power than a Vista 20P had. Just another note about the aux power, the beta system that I installed in my workshop, I believe I have about 9 modules on it, and I do not have an auxiliary power supply. Everything is being powered from the control panel itself. So bell output, 2 amps, it's the same. Just the same as a Vista 20P, it's pulling that power from the battery. So if you have a sounder and you're wanting to sound it, then you need to make sure you've got a charged battery connected. The event log, we've got 10,000 events. The event log is always enabled to record everything. So this will be great for troubleshooting. It's going to record your non-alarm events such as Z-Wave activations, relay activations, and those things, as well as alarms and troubles, opens and closes. And then, of course, VPlex support. Vista 20P style panel has never supported VPlex. And I know there's a lot of panels out in the field when the Vista 40 was popular, when the Vista 50 was popular. There's a lot of panels out there with VPlex. Those panels, you can now upgrade without having to replace those zone expanders. Okay, that's been a limitation that I've heard from a lot of you, that you weren't able to replace those panels because of cost of replacing the zone expanders and the panel. So this gives you the opportunity to be able to upgrade that system and reuse those zone expanders. With one side note to this, it does need to be the serial mode zone expander. So when you're talking about a 4208U or a 4208, it has to be the white 4208U. Maybe you didn't install that Vista 40 with the serial number mode zone expanders, but I mean serial mode on the 4208U. However, if you flip dip switch number 6 to the on position, that puts it in serial mode, and now you just have to program in the serial numbers for whatever zone assignment line or serial number assignment line that you had for that device. If it's a brown, a tan color 4208 expander, that expander would have to be upgraded because it does not do serial number mode. We'll talk more about VPlex when we get to that section. But there's just a lot packed into this panel. The advanced protection logic in this panel series, as we add additional ones, does support advanced protection logic. So if someone was to get in, let's say they cut in through an attic and they get in and destroy the panel, if any breach is made into that system, it sends a message to AlarmNet. AlarmNet holds that message for a set period of time set by your programming to determine if if there is a disarm message received. If a disarm message is received within that set period of time, then no alarm is dispatched. However, if no alarm or no disarm message is received, it will dispatch to the central station a possible alarm message. Bluetooth disarming, it's a really great feature that a lot of people like to use. I do want to caution you when you're installing this in commercial or you're installing it anywhere where you believe there might be a need for a duress code. Bluetooth disarming is not the feature for you, but in most circumstances, a lot of circumstances, Bluetooth disarming is great. I love it. I can walk in the door with my hands full, and I don't have to disarm the system because it does it for me. The enclosure holds one 7 amp hour battery. Of course, you could put a 4 amp hour in there as well because it does fit. However, 7 amp hours is what it's actually made and fitted for, but we have a max charge capacity of 36 amp hours. So if you have separate battery boxes to get additional battery backup time, you could charge up to 36 amp hours of batteries. Okay. If you compare that to a Vista 20, it's not up here. The Vista 20 would do 37 amp hours of batteries, 37.5 actually. I don't know how I've missed this, maybe because I'm reading words and I'm wanting to, tell you about all these statistics. But if you look over on the right side of the screen, there's this big starburst that says use any resistor value. And this is possibly one of the best features that we have to be able to put this system in place for any other system that's out there. Okay. With this panel, if it's not a zone program for fire, okay, that's the only exception here. If it's not a zone that's programmed for fire using our onboard zones and our zone expanders that are made for the system, you can use literally any zone or resistor value that you want on that zone. Okay. In programming, you select the resistor value. There's also a scan button in the programming. You can hit scan and it'll scan that zone. If the zone resistor is ready, if it's good, the zone is not faulted, then it's going to see that resistor and it will automatically populate that resistor value for you. Think of the time that you're going to save doing a takeover of a system that was actually properly installed with the resistors at the end of line. You're not going to have to hunt down those resistors, take them out and replace them. Okay. And even if they are in the panel resistors, the ITP resistor, if it isn't in the panel resistor, you don't have to worry about, shorting your wires or, making the wire too short to make a connection because you're replacing that resistor. And just think about the time of taking the resistor off, putting a new resistor on. That's time. And anytime you're taking apart a system, you're opening yourself up for another, something else that might go wrong that you have to work with. If you can leave those resistors in place with the maybe it was a really good professionally soldered system, that just makes it so easy just to use that same resistor that's already on the system. So the panel, I believe, is really scalable. It's flexible and it's got a ton of features just right out of the box. So yeah, I just read those words off the screen, but I believe them. I believe every bit of it. So, let's move on to the next screen here, and let's see what we got going on. Well, I kept talking about commercial, but it is commercial listed. Okay, it's an ETL listed, or it is ETL listed to the UL 1610 commercial Berg standards. Okay, quickly going down this list. I mean, this just shows you that it's commercial material. 4 partitions, 24 keypads, 64 zones, 64 outputs, 100 users with 5 assignable authority levels. You want them all to be master codes? Don't know why, but if you did, you could. Onboard Pro 6 wireless, custom voice descriptors. How many times have you come across, the need to describe something in a commercial environment and you didn't have the right words, or there wasn't enough characters to create custom words for it? This panel, the Vista H3 and the whole Pro Series platform has custom voice descriptors where you can put up to 16 characters in descriptor 1, 16 characters in descriptor 2, and describe whatever you need. And that doesn't mean it has to be one word. You can put multiple words in there, and it's not just something it's going to display. It's actually going to speak whatever words that are there. A lot of you have heard me say that, for my driveway, when someone comes up my driveway, that's the chime announcement we hear in the house. Someone's coming up the driveway. Okay. Yeah, that's more than 2 words, but I've got descriptor 1 and descriptor 2 programmed for that. So advanced protection logic, I've seen many installs that after the fact, it's not really an install. I've seen break-ins where people have come in through the attic and they've kicked that radio or that panel off the wall trying to disable it. Panel has a tamper in the can. You kick that can, that disrupts the tamper, that message is going through even if they didn't breach some other zone getting in. So hardwired zones use any resistor value. Competitive wireless takeover. So you've got 5800 that you can add to this. 5800, Bosch, DSC, 2 gig, and ITI Qualsys. So you're doing a takeover and you have additional wireless out there, you're able to take over that equipment. And then Total Connect partition support. Okay, let's face it, you've got a Vista 20p or let's say a 128 in a system in a business, and they're changing user codes with Total Connect. How many times have you got that phone call that says my user codes didn't sync? Well, you always reply with, did you sync the user codes after you added the code? Um, Typically, I expect, and what I've heard is the answer is usually no. Once because you have to remember to hit the sync, even with the reminder in Total Connect, you must sync this, changes. This, you don't have to worry about that. User codes on the Pro Series platform and the Vista H3, of course, sync automatically. You change a code at the panel, it syncs with Total Connect. Okay, you change a code in Total Connect, it's going to change in the panel. User codes are not going to get out of sync with this. Of course, there's those rare circumstances. A system's disarmed, it's going to wait a little bit. I mean, the system is armed, it's going to wait a little bit before it syncs it because it needs to disarm. But this takes the worry out of that. Think about how many calls you will not get with using this. And then next, quick recover panel replacement. How many panels do you have to, or have you ever had to replace in a commercial environment, even residential? You're going in and you're replacing the panel. Your technicians are there. You're there yourself, spending time figuring out what something was because there wasn't a current upload. This takes all the guesswork out of it. The panel programming is always synchronized. Okay. So now when you install this this new panel, you go in just like a residential Pro Series or just like a Pro Series. You go in, you put the MAC address and the MAC CRC in AlarmNet 360. You go out, you take the old panel off the wall, you put the new panel on the wall. You go through the registration process with the MAC address, or if you're using install ready mode, which we'll talk about. All of the old programming downloads into that new panel. It's that easy, it's that fast. It's going to take you longer to wire the panel up than it will be to have it reprogrammed, ready to go, even if they made changes to user codes yesterday that you didn't upload, because they automatically upload. Okay, so like I say, it's just, in my opinion, the only panel to use right now. I mean, I don't see another reason to use a Vista panel if you're less than 64 zones right now, except for the Vista H3. Account creation. Okay, so we're going to talk about install ready mode, regular real-time setup, and templates. Okay, so this panel is the first Vista panel that supported install ready mode. Okay, what you can do with this install ready mode is you can set up this panel or set up the account for this panel without having the panel in front of you. Okay, once you're scheduling your technician to go out and install this system, you can go into AlarmNet 360 in an office environment where you've got all of the information in front of you, easy to put into AlarmNet to create this account. Okay, and you do not have to grab the box that you're going to send with that technician to install it. You don't need the MAC address. Okay, so what you're going to do this is you'll go into hit new account, you'll do security and fire, and then instead of entering the MAC address, you're going to click here to continue without MAC. So you'll click that. There's a couple of things that your technician is going to need, and we'll see that when we go to the next screen and show you how it registers. They're going to need the zip code where they are, where the house business is located, and they're going to need the AlarmNet account number, which they're going to have that anyway, even if they were the ones creating the account especially. So when you get on site, the technician is going to access the registration menu. So they're going to go to menu, they're going to click tools, then they're going to put in their installer code. Okay, at that point they will access the registration menu. This panel will attempt to register basically as soon as it's powered up. Okay, if it's got internet, if it's got cellular, it's going to attempt to register. So if it did not register, then it will give you the options to do the registration. Okay, and it will give you this screen here. Okay, it's going to say MAC ID is not found. Do you want to add it now? So you tap yes. Here you will enter the city code, the CSID, and the subscriber number with no hyphens. You enter the hyphens at no working, so leave those out. And then you enter the zip code that was programmed when the account was created, and you hit continue. At that point, the panel registers. It syncs with AlarmNet 360, so any template that you had selected when you're setting up the account, that template is going to be downloaded into the panel. Think about with Vista 20p, if you're using templates after the account's registered, now you have to coordinate with either the installer on site. He can do that with the Compass software, or with the someone in the office. They could download the template to the panel so that then he could start programming the system, or she. So you don't have to do that. It's downloading that template. It's downloading whatever needs to go into the panel immediately when you do the registration. Okay. And then it says it's connected, comes up within seconds. And there is an option here, because there are quite a few companies that don't give their installers access to AlarmNet 360. They don't want their installers to have access to every single system that they have in one location. So with respect to that, we still allow that installer to be able to receive a mobile pre-configure link that they can use to launch Total Connect in a pre-configure mode, to allow them to add VX series cameras, older cameras, whatever they need to do in Total Connect to make sure that the system is operating before the customer sees the app for the first time. You can make sure that they have access to do that. And there's nothing later that they have to do. If you set this AlarmNet account up on, let's say today, and next week is when the technician's going out for the install, as long as that technician's email address was programmed in to the account when it was created, when he gets on site and he gets to this connected screen and the system is registered, he gets the pre-configure link at that point to be able to, when he's ready, go into mobile pre-configure and program the cameras, or program scenes, do whatever he needs to do to make sure the system's operational using his mobile device, not needing to use the customer's phone. And it just makes it seamless. They're not having to track down, the person that's receiving the email and getting the password set up, and then having to track them back down. I mean, think about the time that you're going to save not having to track them back to, track the end user back down to, hey, the phone lock, can you unlock it again? It just makes it so much better using this pre-configure. So if you are doing this using the website, nothing has really changed. Okay, so this is basically a short video to show you, and it goes really fast, so that makes it short. That shows you how to register an account with AlarmNet 360. You can see that it is going fast. You can set this up as residential or commercial. Okay, if you set this up as commercial, the home button changes to stay. Okay, even on Total Connect, the home button is no longer there. It's a stay button. So basically, you're going to fill out any of the information that's required there. You can select your template. Okay. You can set up how you're using this with cellular Ethernet, cellular Wi-Fi. Select your video storage plans. Anything that you want to set up, or that's needed to be set up when you're programming this account, you can set that up on this. Well, you have to set it up here. So, and then of course your notifications. Now this is taking a little bit of time, but wouldn't you rather this time be taken at the office by someone who is not an installer? That way, when the installer gets on site, all he has to do is register his system. Okay. All right, there it is. It is registered, and at this point, the reason I did stop the recording on this is because, let's say that your technician did do programming on the system before it was registered, before an account was set up, before you did this. When you register that system, if it has programming in it already, it's not going to download whatever's in AlarmNet 360. It gives you the option, it'll sync the changes, which is the best way to do it. That way, if something was changed on site, and something was changed in AlarmNet 360, it's going to take those changes and merge them together. Of course, you do have the option just to fetch everything from the panel because maybe you don't want anything from an AlarmNet 360. You want it all that the technician had programmed, or you could push everything. And then templates. I don't know if you use templates in your business yet, but you can use templates with AlarmNet 360. You can use templates for the Vista panels using the new P radios. You can use templates for Pro Series. You can use templates for Vista H3. So this actually will show you a couple of ways to set up a template. I may need to optimize this for video again, just to make sure that you see it. I apologize if you didn't see it properly on the last one, but let me play this video for you. It shows you how to create a template. Again, it is going pretty quick. Any of this account registration or template creation that you have questions about, you want to set up 15 minutes for me to show you, in a private meeting, that's no problem. We can do that. But let's go ahead and play this so we can see setting up a template. Okay, so we are going to start over here under the devices. We'll select templates. We'll name our template. Okay, we'll select the panel type. You can see all those panel types to select from. And then you can configure the settings, the users, and partitions, including the settings for the path that you're using. Okay, you can select what reports that you want on a standard. And then also you'll be able to set the installer code. So when it registers, it has your installer code in it. You don't have to worry about an installer code not being set in your panel and it being open for, 1 second, I want to stop, where it's not being protected, it's being open for takeover. So if I could back this up just a little bit here, if you already have a system that's programmed and you want to create a template from that panel, which, makes a lot of sense because a lot of your systems are already programmed current day with a cheat sheet, Vista 20p, you got your cheat sheet, you go in, star this, star that, no more star this, star that. Okay. So what you can do is you can go in and you can click Save as a Template. This is on your account overview page. Okay. When you do that, you name the template and you give the template a description. You hit save. It's that easy. Now you've got a template. You can do this with Pro Series. You can do this with the Vista H3. It just makes it really easy so that you have a template and you don't have to, you don't really have to sit down and have a meeting about what do we want in the template, because you've got so many other systems out there that are all programmed the same. You can go in and create your own template very easily here. Okay. And of course, templates, the template list that you saw on my screen, there's a lot of them there, but you only see the templates for your company. Control panel and device hardware. That's what we're going to talk about next. So communication, we have 3 ways to communicate with this panel. Okay. You've got IP on board, you've got cellular, and you've got optional Wi-Fi. Okay. And these part numbers for the cellular and the Wi-Fi, they're identical that you would use on a Pro Series panel. So, you're reducing the number of SKUs that you have on the system. Okay. A couple of things I do want to mention about using, or one thing I want to mention about using the Ethernet is the Ethernet is set up where the cable plugs directly into the board. Okay. So you're basically taking the cable and you're plugging it directly into the board this way, and then you're closing the door. Okay, you see the problem. Okay, there's not a lot of space there for that cable, and you end up with a 90-degree bend, or in it, and it pushes on the door. It's something that we're actually looking at addressing right now. However, I tend to be a little resourceful, so there is a pigtail. I'm sure you can get just little plugs where you don't have to have a pigtail, but there is a pigtail that you can get. It's a 90-degree pigtail. It gives you a connection on the other end for your Ethernet. A 5-pack of these is like $6 on Amazon. I'm sure if you buy them in more bulk, you could probably get them better. But as of just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with marketing and engineering about what changes could be made to make this not an issue. So look for something to change in the future on that. But until then, little 90-degree pigtail does work perfect for that. All right. Next. So if you're using, instead of just a Wi-Fi module, you can use the Wi-Fi Z-Wave module. And the Wi-Fi Z-Wave module gives you a total of 78 devices that you can use. That being 6 thermostats, 6 door locks, 6 garage door modules, the Z-Wave garage door modules, and 60 lights, water valves, switches, just your on-off dim, adjustable Z-Wave switches, non-specialized. So those, all you have to do is make sure you use the Pro Wi-Fi Z-Wave and you've got that feature. Wireless takeover. Okay, the wireless takeover module is a different part number than you used with the regular Pro Series panel because, well, you don't need a back case for the for the panel, but you do need antennas. Okay, so this module you see does have 2 terminals on it, or a terminal block to plug, to screw in the antennas to tighten those down. And one antenna goes up and to the left, and one antenna goes down. The bend in this, you've always heard us say, don't bend the antennas. The bend in this is at a half wave measurement. Therefore, the half wave bend does not affect the range. In fact, I know that Quentin and myself both, that we have seen that the range with this is better than we've had with Pro Series, and it really challenges the range that we had with a 5881 receiver. So I really do like this board and its setup. So there is one change, or another change, that you'll see in the settings on this module for the Vista H3, and that's when you go to set it for 5800 wireless. By default, the protocol for 5800 wireless with the all-in-one panel, the Pro A7 Plus, was a 0. Okay, that's how it came out of the box. For 5800 wireless with the hybrid, it's a 5. Okay, if you leave it on 0, yes, it does work. But what doesn't work? Why did engineering tell us to set it to a 5 instead of a 0? So I would make sure that, make sure it's noted to each of your installing technicians when they're using this to change it to the 5 to make sure that it works to its optimum performance. And of course, this 5800, or this takeover board, will work with 5800 wireless, 2 gig DSC, ITI Qualsys, and Bosch. Okay. So next, we'll look at the summary of connections, and we could spend a whole lot of time just going through each of these little parts, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of little things because we're going to talk about a lot of different stuff with it in the next slide. So number 1, you've got your trigger connector. Okay, the 4142 TR. In fact, I even mentioned that later. You've got aux power terminals here, you've got an aux power terminal there, and you have a 12 volt here. Okay, these are all the same aux power. That's all of them are connected to your 950 milliamps. Okay, you've got larger terminals for your iBus, which is the new ECP. Okay, because this uses an RS485 bus for communication to keypads and expanders, which gives you a great advantage later. The power supply is 12 volts DC. It's actually 14.5 volts, but it's a 12 volt power supply essentially that you're hooking up to it. And zone 1, your 2-wire smoke zone, and don't forget this option here. Maybe I'm making more of it than it is, but use any resistor value. It does ship with the 2K resistors. So control panel power, you see here 14.3 volts DC, 2.65 amp, and your distance for your wire, it's 12 volt wire, so it's gonna carry it's not going to have as much resistance to the wire as your 9-volt did. Up to 25 feet with 22 gauge wire. 22 gauge wasn't even listed with the Vista 20P specs. Okay. The specification started at 20 gauge with the Vista 20P. And at 20 gauge, we said you could go up to 50 feet. And with 20 gauge here on this panel, you can go 30 to 40 feet. So we're essentially the same distance that you can run your transformer power to the panel with. Okay. So the one thing you want to make sure that you don't do if you are running this, let's say that you're going further than specified, which I hope you don't, but if you did, which unfortunately people do, make sure that at the panel, your loaded voltage does not drop below 13.0 volts. If you do, you're going to get an AC loss message on the keypad and of course reported. Auxiliary power, 58% more, don't forget that. Your voltage range is 11 to 13.6 volts DC out of your terminals there. And you've got your aux power terminals here right next to your A and B, which is your yellow and green for your iBus, okay? We have a power calculation worksheet, okay? This is available on AlarmNet 360 on your account overview page. Now, I can't see cameras. There's only a couple of them on, looks like. But if I could see your cameras, I should probably see your phone doing this to the screen so that doing this to the screen so that you can get a copy of that. That will take you directly to that Excel spreadsheet. If you scan that QR code, and you can make sure that the battery calcs and the current calculations are correct for every system that you install. Okay, takes the guesswork out of it. The sounder output, 2 amps. It's listed as a sounder output, which I want to make sure you know it is voltage only. It is not a speaker output. Okay, I think we're maybe changing the word to sounder instead of bell output. We're trying to, you know, it's a different terminology, but in my book, when I hear the word sounder output, I think that it's a built-in siren driver. It is not a built-in siren driver. It is a 12-volt, 2-amp output, okay? By default, when you hook a sounder up to this panel, it requires the 820 ohm resistor that is supplied, okay? So it comes with a resistor, and if you don't put the resistor out at the siren or in the panel, depending on in the line or in ITP, if you don't put that resistor there, it's going to give you a zone 895 trouble. Okay, if you don't want to use the resistor, okay, if you're putting it in the panel and not at the end of line, that says you don't want to use the resistor. So simply go into zone 895 and set it to unsupervised, and you don't have to use the resistor. So how much time does it take for the technician to find the resistor in the packaging? And it's a little smaller than the other, so if you got bigger hands, it's hard to, harder to work with. And then screw it down with the wires up there. Maybe it's 3 minutes, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's really fast and it's 1 minute. It doesn't matter. You're saving time by turning that feature off, okay? iBus technology. This is our keypad bus now, okay? It uses an RS-485 protocol, and using a twisted pair 22 to 24 gauge wire. It's made for RS-485, twisted pair. You can go up to 4,000 feet on your data wires, okay? That's not to say your 12 volts is going to go 4,000 feet, because you're going to drop too much voltage before you get there. You're not going to have the current. But how many times have you needed to, to put a relay module out at a gate that was, 3,000, 4,000 feet from a building? Okay, you couldn't do it. Okay, that's why people wanted a wireless relay. This solves that problem for you. You've got 4,000 feet that you can run your data bus out to that gate, where if you've got a gate there that you're opening and closing, that tells me you have power. So therefore, you put a power supply in there, you put a common ground, and now you put a relay module. Now that relay module, you can program it to do whatever you want, just like you could on a Vista 20 panel, okay? For shorter distances, you could use Cat 5e. It seems like I saw a specification not to, don't, this is not written down, so I'm saying you don't hold me to this. It's somewhere around 3,000 feet if you're using a Cat5e cable. Okay. Daisy chaining devices is permitted on our systems with this. You can daisy chain. It does make troubleshooting a little more complicated when you've got a whole run of keypads that aren't working. But if you want to daisy chain, you can daisy chain. It doesn't have to be light devices like it did with the ECP. So the thing that you can't do is you can't splice the cable and just Y off. It has to go from device to device. It can't be a splice like that. So it's just something straight out of the specifications for RS-485 protocol. Okay, and then of course the one thing I really loved about ECP was that it said yellow and green. And of course, if I didn't have a yellow wire, I knew it was white. Okay. With this, our labels are ground, aux, B, and A. Okay. B and A, I mean, you're using whatever color, but our specifications for the color, just to help you keep it as a standard, just remember that B is yellow and A is green, and it'll make it easy for you. Okay. The Vista H. Okay, talk about our part numbers for a minute. Vista H is how every part number for the Vista H series, the Vista H3 will start. It'll be Vista H. PKP stands for portrait keypad. Okay, so there's a portrait keypad. This looks identical basically to the hardware. I mean, to the Pro 6 wireless keypad we had. And this is the hardwired keypad that we currently have until the end of January to use for the Vista H3. It is a multi-language display. It does not speak. Okay, it just gives you beeps, but it gives you English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. Okay, we also do have a French SKU number, which puts an FR after it, just so that your button text and the text that's written is in French for a Canadian requirement. Okay. Keypad is a 12-volt keypad. It draws 70 milliamps, and you can use up to 8 of these on the system. Okay. One thing I actually just realized is you really don't have to worry about addressing a keypad. With the ECP, you always had to worry about making sure everything had its own address. These keypads have their own MAC address that's identified on the RS-485, the iBus. So basically, you're hooking up keypads and they're being identified. Okay, so coming January 2025, we know you want it. I want it too. I don't have one yet myself. Be glad when I do. It's going to be fun. So traditional landscape keypad. Nice modern design. It is a tiny bit smaller, especially because of its curved design, than a 6160. Okay, for that reason, we are including a trim ring or a back plate that comes with the package, so that when you go in and you replace an older 6160 keypad or any of the Vista keypads, this will cover the area that it was if you need it to. Maybe there was painting done, wallpapering, whatever may have been done. Your technicians aren't painters. And if they do paint, the paint's not going to match if it was there, years ago, even a year ago, it's still not going to match properly. So you can use that trim ring to take care of that. And power, 12 volts, 70 milliamps. And let's talk about the part number, Vista H, because it's Vista H, L for the landscape, and KP for keypad. Okay, the hardwire expander. Okay, so nice, pretty case. Let's look at it on the inside. It is an 8-zone expansion module. Okay, easily configurable or easily removable terminal strips. So this terminal strip comes off, this one comes off, that one comes off. So if you're trying to, if you're thinking, well, I got to get my fingers down in there and to get the wires connected, no, you don't. Pull the terminal off, put the terminals or the wires in your terminals, and then snap it back up there. Okay. Let's look at how it can be configured. Like I said, it's an 8-zone expansion module. Or is it? Okay. I say or is it because it also does zone doubling. So you can take any one of these zones, as long as it's not being used with a normally open device or a normally open end-of-line resistor device such as fire. You can take any of these zones and you can turn them into a doubled zone. So you get 2 zones out of it. Okay. We can work with any resistor size. You tell it what resistor size it is, or you hit the little scan button and it detects the resistor and it indicates it that way. You can use this for normally open, no resistor, normally closed, no resistor, double balanced if you're using the double balanced contacts, and loop response time is defaulted to 350 milliseconds. Just like our Vista 20 panel, you can change that in programming. Okay, the programming allows for you to make it a faster zone as well as a slower zone. Okay, 12 volts, 40 milliamps, and it is tamper protected. Okay. One thing I do want to note, I put a note at the bottom of the screen, and we'll talk about it later. When you add a iBus, when you add an expansion module to the panel, a zone expander, if it's an ECP zone expander or the iBus zone expander, it automatically assigns the zones on that expander starting at your first available zone. So if you put this on the panel, it's your first module, it will start at zone 9. Okay, if you didn't have anything else, if you had programmed in 3 wireless zones, that would be 9, 10, 11. So that means now it's going to start at zone 12, and that would be where your next zones are. Okay. The Vista H relay module. Okay. Easy part number. Okay, this is what your relay module looks like on the inside. And one thing that's really not depicted in these pictures is the board is smaller than the case itself. So, you know, with the 4219s and all of the zone expanders that we use today, when you put those up, your wires are sticking out of the case. That is not the case with this. Not the case of them sticking out of the case. There is room inside of the enclosure for your wires to connect, and it is a hinged cover that closes. It makes it very easy to make your install look neat and clean by having all of the wires neatly enclosed in the enclosure. So the terminal strips, easily removable. Pop them off, pop them on. Like I say, all of them are removable here. This does have 4 Form C relays on it, just like a 4204 module. The power is 12 volts and 25 milliamps. Each time that you activate a relay on it, it draws an additional 20 milliamps. Okay, so if you, excuse me, if you're using this for, and you're only using 2 relays on it, you'll want to figure your current at 25 plus 20 plus 20 would be the basically the alarm current, a maximum current that it would be using. Okay, contact ratings 3 amps, 30 volts, and it is tamper protected. Whenever you program one of these relay modules into the system, there's one thing that is going to be a little different for you. Okay, in the Vista 20P series, the Vista 128 series, when we talk about relays, we talk about those as being outputs, output number 1, output number 2, and so forth. When you add a relay to this system, they start at zone 302. Okay, so zone 302 is basically going to be your first relay. Zone 303 would be your second relay, and so forth. Okay, if you're wondering why we're starting at zone 302, 300, and 301 are used for the triggers. Okay, so we look further at this, we do see, the Form C relay and a little breakdown that way. Okay, the Vista H TKVR for takeover -B. Okay, this is for taking over ECP bus devices. That's where the B comes from. Okay, with this device, you can take over a 4219, 4229, which is a 4219 with 2 relays, a 4204, a 4204CF, which is a commercial fire relay module. It's supervised relays for supervised bell outputs, basically. It will support up to 2 5881 receivers. So, well, when's the last time you used 2 5881s on a Vista 20P? You haven't. At least if it worked, you haven't. And then it also supports the ECP isolator. Okay. Multiple ECP devices are supported per module. You can put up to 17 ECP devices on one module. So you only need one module for the panel. If you're going in different directions and you need an ECP module in this building and an ECP module in that building, that's fine. You can actually use up to 4 of these modules. The devices that you can put on the module, basically it supports up to 64 zone inputs because that's what the panel maximum is. Each one will support up to 32 relays and 2 receivers, okay? And how much power does it take itself? 12 volts and 45 milliamps, okay? And it has the ability, if you hook this up to an auxiliary power supply, it does have the ability to pass 1.3 amps output. The Vista H TKVR takeover V for Vplex. Okay, this module looks about the same, except you'll notice the terminal strip for the Vplex devices is on this side. For the ECP module, it's on the left side. So if you ever look at a module and you're confused about which one it is, Vplex is on the right, ECP is on the left. Okay, so the Vista or the Vplex module will support a total of 96 devices. Okay, 172 is the number of inputs that you can have. Of course, this panel supports only 64 zones, 56 of which can be Vplex. Okay, what does that tell you? That tells you that we're forward thinking this is not the last panel. We will have panels that support more devices, more sensors, more zones. So basically the limits that we have here are, they come from the 128 milliamp limit that we have with polling loop. That's just part of its infrastructure. It's 128 milliamps per run. So that's where that limit comes from. The power that this device draws is 56 milliamps. And of course, 128 milliamps pass-through current coming from the panel there. Okay, it is serial devices only. So anything that is a serial polling loop device is supported on this module. Okay, including, as you see right above it, the 4101SN, which is I used the word poppet earlier. It is a poppet with 2 zones and a relay. Okay, we're going to talk about specifically programming in the serial numbers for these modules, but I do want to just go ahead and make a note to make you ready, to make you ready to hear that. When you're programming in Vplex devices currently, these serial numbers must be programmed in manually from the keypad during programming. Okay, we'll explain that. So the Vista H ISO, it's an isolation module. Okay, basically this allows you to separate fire and burg. I don't know anywhere that it is a requirement in residential fire to separate fire and burg, but it is a great practice. This way, all of your fire devices could come directly off the keypad bus, and your burg devices could come from the isolator module. That way, if there is ever damage to a keypad or damage to a keypad bus on the burg side, it is not going to affect anything on the fire side. Okay, so supported input types. And this is true across all of our the 8 zones on the board and the zone expander. Okay, end of line resistor or ITP, however you decide to do it. Normally closed, no resistor. Normally open, no resistor. Tamper protected circuits are double balance zone, which are tamper protected contacts. They require 3 2K resistors each. Okay, I believe I have an example of that here in a moment. And then of course we work with double balance zones. On any one of these zones you can set the double balance as long as it's not being used for fire. And those have to be normally closed contacts only using end of line resistor. Okay. So zone 1 supports up to 16 2-wire smokes. Okay. It requires a 2K end of line resistor, anything that's programmed for fire, and it is not selectable after that. The Smoke Logic works just like it works with the Vista series. Okay, anytime there's a short on zone 1 and you acknowledge the fire a second time, it is going to do a reset of those smoke detectors. Um, in the manual, we've actually got some really good zone voltages, and I've put some of those here. End of line resistor value is 13.5 volts. A latched alarm voltage is 6.7 volts. Okay. And 4-wire smokes, just like our Vista panel, 2-wire smoke zones, you cannot use 4-wire smokes on a 2-wire smoke zone. So zone 1, if you're using 4-wire smokes, don't put them on zone 1 because your smoke reset logic is not going to work. Okay, if you are using 4-wire smokes, okay. With 4-wire smokes, any zone you want except zone 1, it does require an end-of-line 2K resistor. And you also, by code, are required to use a power reset relay, or it requires a power reset relay. The end of line relay is the one that I was meaning to say that it was required by code. Okay, so you do need a relay or a trigger in a relay to do the fire zone reset. Okay, and there's 2 ways to set this up. One way is you can do the full programming yourself, activate by event type, tell the event type it's fire zone reset, and your action would be closed for 2 seconds, and then select what output number it is, 301, 302, 303, etc. Okay. The other way is somewhat automatic, which I will show you in the output programming. I think it's pretty cool, so we'll talk about it. Double balance zones. Okay, the double balance zones, they do require the 3 2K resistors. And of course, they are special contacts. They are used in prisons, government buildings, nuclear power plants, children's homes where, somebody might be trying to escape, putting a little magnet next to a window and trying to climb out. I don't know. In my 27 years, I've only talked to a few people that have ever used these. So, zone doubling. Nothing has really changed from the zone doubling. In fact, the zone doubling kit that comes in the box with the control panel is identical to the one in the Vista 20P and the 21IP. So nothing has changed there. Backup battery, charge voltage. Charges at 13.65 volts. If the battery voltage ever drops below 11.5 volts during a test, we are going to, or if it drops below that, it is going to indicate that there is a low battery. We do a 2-minute load test every 4 hours. And different from a Vista 20P or Vista Legacy Vista series, walk test mode does not initiate a battery test. Okay, so if the panel does get down, or if the voltage does get down to 10.2 volts, it is going to shut the panel down to avoid a deep discharge of the battery and to prevent the panel from operating weirdly for not having enough voltage. And of course, we can charge up to 30. All right, so we are at an hour and 16 minutes, and we probably will, in case anybody needs to make plans, we probably are going for another 30 minutes. So just want to let you know that. And I wanted to open it up for questions about anything on the iBus, if you had any of those. Okay, we will keep going. Installer tools. So this is when you go into your tools menu, and this the section really won't take long because it's about the same as the current Pro Series panel. But if you're not familiar with the Pro Series, which there's a lot that have not used Pro Series because they want it hardwired. So we're going to go through this information here. The installer code for the panel is 4112. When you go into the tools menu, of course, you're tapping the menu at the bottom and you're sliding up to get the tools. System information. The general section will give you the firmware version. The main control will give you the MAC address information and hardware version. Okay. Test communicator gives you the option to test sensors and to test the communicator. Whenever you test the sensors, it's gonna refresh the signal level, and it will also refresh the battery level if it's different. Panel registration, like we say, is automatic. It is found if it's automatic if the MAC ID is found in AlarmNet 360 when it's on power up and connection. The panel, or if the panel's not to set the local mode. Okay. If you set the panel to local mode, it's not going to try to register when it powers up, of course, because it's not enabled to communicate at that point. Okay, local mode disables communicator. So if you're using this in new construction or someone that wants a local system, go into the local mode and tell it yes to enable local mode, and then the system doesn't give you any troubles or anything because it's not able to report. It is a local system. To re-enable this, you must be on site to have it re-enabled. Cellular will display your current cellular network, registration status, signal strength, and that information. And of course, I threw up a chart to tell you good, bad, or ugly. Nothing has really changed there. Wi-Fi touchscreen enrollment. Okay, this is used for enrolling the Vista H Touch wireless console, okay, or the Pro WL Touch keypads. They do have different features. We do have different part numbers in these, but the Pro WL Touch keypad will work if it's at a current firmware version. If it's not at a current firmware version, it will have to be updated on a regular Pro Series panel before you can use it on the Vista H3. Okay. Enrolling keypads, you can enroll these using a WPA2 passkey or WPS enrollment. Okay, they can be enrolled locally to the panel or to the Wi-Fi network. Okay, installer pin, this is where you can change your installer code. And you also have the default options to factory default the panel to return it to its original programming. And notice the panel will automatically attempt to download previous configuration after defaulting and establishing communication with AlarmNet. So if it's still able to communicate with AlarmNet through cellular or internet and you default it, it's going to automatically reattempt to register. Okay, and there's an option for reboot system or system shutdown. It's very similar to the start button on your computer if you want to shut down the system basically to power it off, or if you want to reboot it. You don't have to go to the control panel to do a reboot. You can actually do a warm boot just by going in here and doing reboot system. Okay, either one of these shuts the panel down properly. Now, when you do a system shutdown, the panel will reattempt to power up within 3 minutes if you haven't removed power from it, if you're shutting it down completely. Okay, connecting the wireless touchscreens. Okay, so we're going to talk about pairing local with WPS, pairing with the premises Wi-Fi, and connecting the H3 to Wi-Fi. Okay, so notice, like I mentioned, there is a different part number for this keypad just because there's a couple of different flavors of menus that are in this keypad that are not in the Pro WL Touch. Now, if you did use a Pro WL Touch keypad and connect it to the panel, it will immediately get a firmware update. It takes about 4 minutes, honestly. It'll immediately get the firmware update from the control panel. It'll do a reboot, and now you've got all of the menu options that you need if you're using that keypad for programming. Okay, this keypad is required for local programming. So if you are programming it locally, you do need this keypad. Okay, it works on 2.4 or 5 gigahertz networks, and like I say, you can connect it to the customer's Wi-Fi. And you can connect it locally using a WPS to the control panel. Okay, if you're connecting it locally to the control panel, you do need the Pro Wi-Fi or the Pro Wi-Fi ZW. But if you're using Ethernet on the control panel, of course, you don't need those modules because you just connect it to the control panel. I mean, to the premises Wi-Fi. Okay. These keypads have improved connectivity. Okay, what does that mean? That means that that phone call that you may have received from a customer saying my keypad has lost connection to the panel and it won't reconnect. Um, well, that's been fixed. It was actually fixed right here. And this there's a keypad here that I have at my desk. This is for a separate building where I've got my Vista H3 installed. Here, I mean, it's literally 150 feet away from where I'm sitting right now, and it's going through many access points in order to get to, or there's many access points between me and that building. Okay. Um, this keypad sits here at my desk all day. When I'm at my desk all day, I see this keypad connecting all the time. Okay. The change that was made to fix, improve the connectivity. I'm sure, looking at who's here, I'm sure each one of you have heard me describe what is happening, why those keypads have lost connectivity. And I recommend that you turn off or recommended for Pro Series that you turn off the client steering or band steering. Well, that's truly what it was. As engineering got into it and figured it out, that roaming was not enabled on the mesh network. So therefore, when the mesh network wanted to redirect a keypad to another access point, it would stop passing its data. Well, as long as that panel, or as long as that keypad could see that access point, it wasn't going anywhere else. It wanted to talk to it because roaming wasn't enabled. They enabled roaming in this keypad. They've enabled roaming in the Wi-Fi card for the control panel. And now, sure, the mesh network may block connectivity and say you need to change. At that point, you may see the keypad looking for the panel, but it comes up within just a few seconds. And I'm not talking 30 or 40 or 50 seconds. I'm talking within, 5 to 8 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, it comes back up and connects because the network has directed it somewhere else and it says, hey, I'm going somewhere else, and it finds it and connects. Okay. Since they've made that update and that change, it has worked perfect for me ever since. Okay. So this keypad does include a USB power supply. It's got a 4-hour backup battery with it, and the wall mount or desk mount options that are available. Currently, a wall mount Pro WL Touch WM. That is the current and existing wall mount that you've been using, 5 volts. In mid-January, there will be a new wall mount that will come with a 9-volt transformer. Okay, and it's got a little voltage converter program or built into it. So don't use a 9-volt transformer on your current ones, or you're going to burn up your keypad. But anyway, the part number will change on that a little bit to an A, just to differentiate the difference between the new ones and the old ones. Okay, again, coming mid-January. Of course, there's a desk mount still available. Okay. The wiring length, just wanted to make sure we covered that again. For those that have used Pro Series, if you have not used it before, then you do want to make sure you pay attention to this. If you're using the current wall mounts using 22 gauge wire, you can go 13 feet. That's not 13 and a half feet. It's not 14 feet. That also must include your service loop. Okay. If you have more wire than 13 feet, you will be back for a voltage problem. Okay. That is the length that's recommended for the wire. Okay. So, 20 gauge wire, you can go up to 21 feet, 18 gauge wire up to 34 feet. And I know what you're thinking. If I do that, I can't use the existing wire. Well, you're right. You would have to find a plug local, a plug nearby, and plug in that transformer. And no one likes to give up any of their outlets. So if you want to reuse existing wiring, you can use a voltage converter, a 12 volt to 5 volt voltage converter. There's 9 volt to 5 volt converters. You can use a voltage converter and put that voltage converter behind your keypad, connect the power, the red and black wires of this to 12 volts at the old panel location. Okay. And now whatever your normal voltage wire run was previously at 12 volts is going to work here because you've got 12 volts going to the keypad. Out of this converter, you actually have going to this converter. Out of this converter, you've got 9 volts, and that will power the wall mount. Okay, you can get these from Amazon. You see they're about $6. They're about $6 if you buy them, about 5 if you buy them in 3 packs. This is something that we've actually, with the next model of this, we're building into the wall mount. Okay, which you see this here. There's something else that's improved on that wall mount. It fixes the wobble. If you use that, our current wall mount, I know you've noticed that, it does wobble a little bit. Even if you've installed it perfectly flat on the wall, you do get a little bit of a wobble to it. So with this new wall mount adapter, not only is it going to come with a 9-volt power supply, but it is also going to fix that wobble. Okay. So just make sure that you don't don't use that 9-volt power supply or a 9-volt power supply on the current wall mount. Okay. And if you notice, we've got some pretty good measurements here to allow you to reuse the wire in the wall. Okay. We've even taken it down to twisting 2 wires together and going 136 feet on 22 gauge wire. Just 2-conductor 22, 68 feet. But you see the different measurements here, and this is a whole lot better than you had with the current and previous wall mount. Okay, so connecting the keypad via WPS. Okay, if you're taking this in, you're going into a site and you're going to use the keypad connected directly to the panel. The way that you connect the keypad to the control panel is using the tamper switch. Okay, so you press the tamper switch, hold it for 2 seconds, you release it for 2 seconds, and you repeat that 3 times. It'll put the control panel into a pairing mode, and at that point, your second LED that's on the board, the LEDs are a little bit over to the left of here. Second LED will be going on and off somewhat rapidly to indicate you're in pairing mode. Okay, and now you can pair the keypad with the control panel. Now, if you have an iBus keypad on there, you can actually put the keypad in enrollment mode automatically. I mean, not automatically, but with a code entry of installer code followed by 061, and that puts it in enrollment mode. And then you can also go back anytime and view if it's in enrollment mode by the 063 or take it out with 062. Now, if you are enrolling this into the control panel directly, while you're enrolling it, you need to stay at the control panel. It's WPS pairing. We've known since our first IP cameras at WPS pairing, it's intended to be local, close by. So you can connect the, on your menu, you can tap WPS pairing and then hit connect, and your keypad acquires the control panel IP address, put in the 4-digit code, installer or master code, and you're connected. Okay. If you're pairing it to the customer's Wi-Fi, okay, you want to make sure your panel is connected to Ethernet that is also connected to the same Wi-Fi network. Okay, and at that point, you go into Wi-Fi networks and scan. You connect it as normally to your Wi-Fi network, and then you hit pair to panel. And of course, it goes through the same process and connects to the panel. Okay, something else that you can do, well, not something else, but if you want to connect the VH3, Vista H3 to Wi-Fi using the touchscreen, okay, after you've connected let's say there is no Ethernet and you connect your keypad to the panel locally. Okay, now what you would do is you would tap system here. The reason this is toggling between system network information and system is if you have Ethernet connected, or if it's already connected to the network, it's going to give you system network information, okay? But if you tap system under your Wi-Fi options, then you can connect to Wi-Fi here, okay? And you basically do the same thing. When you tap system, it gives you the menu to connect to Wi-Fi, find your network, connect as you normally would any device to Wi-Fi. Okay, there's another way that you can connect the Vista H3 to Wi-Fi, and that's using the AlarmNet 360 app. I'm going to email each of you a copy of this so that you've got these instructions. Um, this method here does work, and it seems to work. It seems a little more smooth than it has been in the past. I know a lot of people that don't like using the AlarmNet 360 app for connecting to Wi-Fi. It's to me, it was just another step, and I prefer doing it a different way if I can do it locally. Okay, but this method does work. It is very smooth, and if you follow these steps, you'll be able to pair your panel using the AlarmNet 360 app to Wi-Fi so that you can connect your keypad to Wi-Fi as well. Okay, there's another way in that if you have if you have Total Connect on the control panel, which you should, then and if it's got cellular so that it's already, the panel's already registered, then you can go into Total Connect, go to the more or the settings menu, okay, and you can select change Wi-Fi network here, even if it's not been connected yet. Okay. It'll basically walk you through activating the Bluetooth pairing. Basically, it's opening the control panel. Whoops. And then you're able to use the Total Connect app to go through and select the Wi-Fi network and connect it to Wi-Fi. Okay, and you basically do that through Bluetooth and cellular combined together. Okay. All right, real quick, any questions before we get into the programming section here? If there is, let me know. If not, I'm going to keep moving to try to respect your time here. Okay, programming mode, you're going to tap the menu button at the bottom of the screen. You'll scroll up to Tools. You'll tap Tools, enter the installer code of 4112, and then you'll hit Programming. Okay, partitions. The partition section, a lot of people skip because they say, well, I'm not using a partition. Well, the partition section is actually where you've got your entry delay, your exit delays, your quick arm, your quick exit. This is where those features are found, okay? If you are adding a second partition to the system, you can do that in this menu as well. But you've got all of your partition settings here. So some of the settings are not editable. If you see them grayed out, that means that that setting is either turned on or off and it can't be changed. Okay. To add a partition, you'll hit the little plus button. Okay. And then you can add the partition, or to subtract or delete a partition, you select the checkbox and then you hit delete. And then it does give you a delete again to confirm, just to make sure that wasn't an accidental deletion. Okay, device enrollment via AlarmNet 360. Okay, so let's say that you've you've got all your devices connected to the system. You've got your zone expanders, your relay modules, your ECP converters, your VPlex converters, whatever those devices are, you've got them connected to the iBus. Okay, so in AlarmNet 360, whether it's the app or the website, you select iBus devices. Okay, at that point, you'll click Add iBus Device in the upper right corner. Okay, you can see it up here. Next, it brings this screen up and you'll click on Learn. It connects to the panel, puts the panel in a learn mode, and it goes out and it finds the first iBus module, and it automatically enrolls it, tells you what it is, show you the MAC address in case you want to make any identifying name to it. And it also allows you, shows you the zones that it automatically assigned to it. Okay. It'll say that the module is saved, and there it will be on your screen. You continue to do this for each of your iBus modules. Each one will be enrolled this way, and it will show up on the screen, for you there. Okay. If you're going to enroll an iBus module from the keypad, because what do people like to do? We like to program from the keypad. That's what installers really like to do. I mean, some I guess some of the younger ones, maybe they like to use their phone and do it that way. But a lot of them, I mean, using the keypad is really the way that people like to program. So to add iBus devices from the keypad, there is a menu here that's called iBus devices, and basically that's just going to show you the iBus devices that are enrolled, and it will show you the iBus devices that are not enrolled. Okay, but to enroll the iBus devices, you actually go to peripherals. This is where the zone programming and those options are. This is where you add sensors, key fobs, keypads, and where you add iBus devices. Okay, so we go to peripheral configuration. Okay, and we'll hit tap add. Um, on the peripheral configuration, we'll tap add sensor or device. It'll bring up the screen and it will be scanning for devices, and it's going to find them automatically. Okay, once it finds a module, it'll tell you what that module is. It'll show you the serial number, show you what zone number it's assigned to. You can put in a description for it. Okay, whoops, sorry. And one more thing, the iBus zone expansion modules are all going, or any of the expansion modules are going to come up in the 600 to 663 range. Okay. Any zone that's on them will be starting at the first available zone after zone 8. Okay. The iBus relay module, relays are added at the first available zone number starting after 301. Okay, so it starts at 302. And that zone number is used for supervision, labeling, and description, and it's used for addressing it when you're choosing your output number for your actual relay programming. Okay, when you program then this relay module, there is a fire reset module or fire reset option for any of the relay or any of the zones outputs for that module. Okay, if you tell it that it is a fire reset, then it disables remote control for that relay, so you won't access it through total, excuse me, it disables access to that relay through Total Connect, and it disables it from the keypad, and it automatically configures it for 4-wire reset. So it's going to do it automatically in the background, and that means you don't have to go through and program the individual steps like I showed you earlier. Okay. When you enroll an iBus to ECP takeover module, so you have to enroll the ECP takeover module first, and then you also have to enroll each of and that's scanned just the same way I showed you. It scans automatically and picks it up, but it's in a process. You do one, then you scan it again, it does another, scan it again, it picks up another. Each device connected to the ECP takeover has to have its own unique address. Okay. So for instance, if you're putting two 5881s on an ECP takeover, each one has to have a different address on its dip switches. Okay. ECP devices, the 4219 and 4229 expanders, again, the zones are added automatically whenever you enroll that device. And if it is a 4229, there's a question that pops up that says, do you want to enable the relays? You have to say yes there if you do want to be able to assign the relays later. Okay, and the 4204 relay module, again, it's just the same way as the iBus relay module. It gives you the first relay added to the panel starting at the first available after 301. And it has that same fire reset option where it will automatically configure 4-wire smoke reset and disabling its remote control. Okay, iBus to VPlex converter. Okay, we scan, we've scanned and we've added the converter through this method automatically. It found the VPlex module, but we also need to add the VPlex zones themselves individually. Okay, so the way that we do this is after we've added that module and we want to add one of the zones on the module, just like we're adding a wireless device, we would actually come in here and choose add manually. Okay, when we click add manually, then it will come up with a screen. We'll see it in a bit, and it shows that it's pre-populated with an A, and you have to take that out, and you'll put in the serial number. So I don't want you to miss that, is why I had that in there again as an extra. This is basically just a chart of all the different zones. There's no need to really go over all of these right now. It's just something that you've got available for reference. It is in the installation manual for the control panel, but this would be a handy reference for you to have as a technician, as a customer support person, or at the central station to know what zone numbers are reported for each type of device. All right, so adding peripherals. This gets down to the individual steps. So we're going to tap peripherals, sensors, key fobs, and keypads. Okay, we're going to tap that. Next, we'll tap this add button. This is this little step that you were probably saying I was missing earlier. You tap the add sensor or zone in the top right-hand corner, and it comes up with this screen, learning is active. Okay, this is where it scans for any of our iBus devices, and they'll be found first as we're doing this. Okay, so now if we are enrolling a Pro 6 or a takeover device, we're going to activate that device. If it's a Pro 6 device, we're going to power it up. LED is going to flash for at least 8 seconds, and then it will pop up with the screen to configure that device. It'll show us what it is, it'll show us the MAC address, and we can go through this screen programming any of the options. If we're using more than one option on that device, such as a 6CT, if we're using the read switch and the terminals, the first one it's going to pick up is the read. If we want to use the terminals, we could change that, or we could tap add and add the other input to it as well to use. Okay, and then we'll hit save when complete, or save and add another. Now for the onboard zones, programming those. Okay, so we go in and we select one of the onboard zones instead of hitting add zone. This is where we can change the input type. Okay, we can set up our zone description. We've got our response types, our device types. We have chime enabling or disabling per zone, and then we have our resistance value. If we tap manual entry, we can select, we can literally put in, not select, we literally put in, manually enter the resistance value, or we could hit scan for it to select it automatically. Okay. And of course, just configure any of your zone settings as you normally would, and hit save. So for the iBus zone expansion modules, okay, this could be for the iBus expansion module or the 4219 or 4229. Those zones are automatically added, like I said earlier, to the next available zone. This will indicate the MAC address that each one has, is attached to. When it says MAC 7 on these, this indicates that it is an ECP device address 7. This indicates that it is a iBus expander with, the MAC address that ends in 3038 or 3039. Okay. If you're looking at this on AlarmNet 360, the iBus expansion zones are called ZIM terminals. That's its input type. And the ECP expansion zones are called ZIM ECP terminal. And of course, ZIM stands for Zone Expansion Module. Okay, you can select any of these zones to edit. As soon as you tap them, it brings up the screen and shows you all of your options. Again, you've got your input type that you can select here. And 4219 and 4229, that is not editable because that's the way the module was built. Okay, and VPlex zones. To me, this is maybe one of the most important parts of this, maybe because it's the part that I had the hardest time with during the beta and learning it, but I want to make sure that you understand how to do this, okay? To enroll a VPlex zone, number one, you enroll the VPlex expander first, or the VPlex takeover. You connect your expander module to it, like a 4208SN or a 4208U. Make sure it's in serial mode, you hit the add device like we saw earlier, and on this screen, we tap add manually, similar to adding a 5800 wireless device, okay? So we tap add manually, okay? When we do that, you see now we have a new option, VPlex converter module, and it tells us what zone number it enrolled at and what the MAC address is that it assigned it. So we will tap that. It opens up the zone programming for that specific zone. Okay. We then tap serial number. We remove the A and we type in the serial number. Okay. At that point, you know, if this happens to be one of the two zone modules, we've got the left loop, the right loop, basically loop 1, loop 2, that we could select. Okay. And then we would hit save. Okay. If we want to use more options on that one device, you know, loop 1 and loop 2, then we could hit the add button. Now, I said this was used, you know, and approved for commercial. Well, in certain states, certain jurisdictions, if it's a Berg system in a commercial environment, you're not allowed to have fire or medical panic zones enabled. Okay, this screen here, which is directly off of the programming screen, called panic alarms, gives us the option to disable those individual panics, and this disables those panics on the keypads themselves. Okay, I know the fixed or the wired keypads will still have the button available. In those jurisdictions, you would need to also cover the word fire and medical, not to quote any of your code. There's too many of them for me to know about. So just make sure that you meet the requirements of your code when you're installing this system in a commercial environment to match up to their fire requirements, because it is not commercially fire rated. Okay. So the next settings here, basically a review. If you're familiar with Pro Series already, if you're not, this is new for you. This will cover the information that you're going to need to know. Under advanced settings, the communicator path is found in the advanced settings. So if we go to communicator, this is where your communicator settings are. This is basically the settings that you would have for your cell module or your internet module that you would use in AlarmNet 360 to send data and get data from. This is where your old alarm, your path is set, your Ethernet fault time, Wi-Fi fault time, cellular fault time. That's where these settings are. If you need to use DHCP, those settings are here as well. Okay. Not only that, but you also have your Berg dialer delay. Okay, Berg alarm sound. Do you want the keypads to give you the sounding time zone? If you're in a central or mountain or Pacific time zone, you can set that here, which can also be set in your template. Okay, daylight savings time. You've got your language selections, as well as the Bluetooth disarming and our RF jam options. There's one option here that I do want to point out. Require PIN to view cameras. If it's a commercial environment, yeah, you might want to have to require a 4-digit code to view the cameras. However, if it's residential, this is something that I would see as a frustration point, because it's a frustration point for me in my personal environment at my home. I don't want to enter a code to see my cameras. I want to tap cameras and they pop up. So, work with your customer, find out what they want to be able to do with that. Do they want to require a code to view the cameras? And then continuing, you've got the RF jam, Berg and fire sounder timeout, swinger suppression, and your commercial type here. Remember, commercial or customer type, if it's set for commercial, it will say arm home or arm stay instead of arm home. And if it's set to residential, it will say arm in the home mode. So test report frequency here is set to never by default. Of course, if you want to change that, you can set that to daily, monthly, or weekly. All right, and you also have the panel sync delay time on the screen where you can set. And the lockout duration, this might be new to you. The lockout duration is if you've entered if someone has entered a code or up to, I believe it's 30 keystrokes without entering a valid code, then it's going to lock out the keypad from accepting any codes. That is this lockout duration time, okay? And the reporter section, as we continue down the same advanced settings section that we're in, any of these reports can be turned off that are not grayed out. Any of them that are faded out or grayed out, then you can turn off. And the ones that you cannot change are indicated by an asterisk here. Okay, the getting close to the end here, so if you're pressed for time, I understand, but we are getting really close. Including devices for Z-Wave management, this menu is accessible by the end user under devices. It is also accessible in the programming menu. So you can go to include devices to put the panel into inclusion mode. Okay, on the screen, you can go and trip each one of your Z-Wave devices and it will stay on the screen enrolling each of them. Then you can come back and give them names, okay? The excluding devices or exclusion mode excludes one device at a time and you must come back to put it in exclusion mode again. This prevents devices from being excluded without, when you didn't intend to. Okay, I do want to go back because you have the update network button here. After creating a Z-Wave network, it's always good to go in and hit update network so that it will go out and find all of its devices. Each one will go find all of its neighbors, and it's basically optimizing the Z-Wave map. Okay, automation rules. This is the relay programming. Okay, so the relay programming is under automation rules here, and then you see above it we've got the panic alarms, which we went directly to without showing you the menu option earlier. So automation rules, we'll tap that. We can tap add a new rule, the little plus, and this is where we've got the option for our trigger. Of course, you can also name it. You can give it a custom name so you know exactly what it is. So we can activate by zone type. This, any of the selected zone types would actually cause it to the relay to activate. So if you had a relay set up to activate on entry exit 1, anytime an entry exit activated, it's going to, faulted, it's going to activate this relay, or it's going to start whatever action there is there. Okay. You also have the option of zone number or event. Okay. So you could set it up to activated by zone number or event, and whatever zone number you select and it matches that event, being a restore, fault, alarm, or trouble, it will start the relay. To give you an example, I've got a closet with a contact on it. Anytime you open that door, that zone faults. Anytime that zone faults, it activates a relay. Okay. Now, remember, depending on what action we look at momentarily, anything that you turn on is going to need another action to turn off. So when the door closes, if I want that relay to reset, then I would create another output, and that would be activated by zone number. And I would say when that zone restores to turn off the relay. Okay. So we also have the option on trigger, what type of trigger. We have the option for system event. When we activate by system event, it can be any of these system events. If you're familiar with the Vista, series relay programming, this is identical. Okay. You've got start of entry delay to activate a relay. You've got fire zone reset. You've got duress. You've got audio alarm verification. You've got bell timeout. If you want to program a relay to activate when a alarm goes off and you want it to turn off when the bell times out, you set it to that, and now your relay doesn't go on all the time. Okay. Activate by any burglar alarm. That would be how you could turn that relay on. Now, after you've selected your trigger type, then you're going to select the output number. Okay, so you've got your output number here. Remember, 300 is trigger 1, 301 is trigger 2, 302 through 364. It sounds crazy having 62 relays. 302 to 364 is your relay output numbers. Okay, they're called zones, or here we're referring to them as outputs. Okay, any output that you had previously defined as a fire reset, as I mentioned, it won't be listed here, which tells us also that the programming is automatic and you do not have to program that. Okay. And then your actions, same as they are on the Vista 20P series. You have open, which means turn off. You have close, which means turn on. You have close for 2 seconds, which is a momentary on and then off. You've got 1 second on off toggle. It will toggle until you tell it to go off. It'll continue to do that. And then you also have close for duration, and you can literally type in the duration that you want there between 15 and 5,400 seconds. And finally, if you're using the voltage triggers, you would need the 4120 TR cable. Your ECP harness cable will still work. It would work the same, but this trigger cable covers all of the terminals, even the ones not used. These are floating triggers. They pull to ground and they provide 20 milliamps of current. And again, this 12-volt pin here is identical to the aux power terminal. It's just another access point for it. So we'll take questions in a minute, but to go over the things that we've covered today basically is a transformation of a Vista panel, okay? We've covered its technical specifications and features. We looked at account creation and templates, including the install ready mode. We specifically look at the hardware specifications, communication. We looked at relays and ECP relays. We looked at zone expanders for the iBus and ECP zone expanders. We looked at VPlex zone expansion. And in the relay programming, you could also, if you had a VPlex zone expander with a relay module on it, it would be assigned in the 300s as well. And you could do relay programming with it as well. So we talked about Pro 6 wireless and the takeover of our programming, the Pro 6 wireless and takeover wireless, Z-Wave control, and complete system programming, and relay output programming. So just like to open it up for questions if you have any. And you know, there's also a QR code there. If I could see you on camera, you should be doing this, because that will take you to a library of all of our product manuals for the products. So any questions? All right, well, if there are no questions, and thank you for attending today.
Thank you for attending Tech Talk with Troy today. We hope you found the session enlightening, and we look forward to you implementing these practices in your business. Keep an eye on your inbox for our next session's invite, and here's to your continued success.